All right, let's do a quick wristwatch check here. I'm wearing a Guanjin Chinese-made dress watch with an NH35A Seiko movement in it. And no particular reason why I'm wearing the watch. I just put it on about a week ago. Haven't taken it off yet. And with that, let's go right into this month's Poor Boys Horology podcast.
You are watching the Poor Boys Horology podcast, the podcast for watch enthusiasts on a budget. Your host for today's podcast is Dr. Ed DeVries, an amateur horologist whose personal collection includes Timex, Rolex, and everything in between. If you are interested in dive watches, dress watches, designer watches, military watches, automatic watches, hand-winding watches, quartz watches, or pocket watches, the Poor Boys Horology podcast is about to become your favorite podcast. So click like and subscribe. Then sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode of the Poor Boys Horology podcast.
All right, well, I want to talk about German wristwatches today, particularly World War II German wristwatches. World War II German wristwatches that were issued by the Nazi government, by the Nazi military. I'm getting a lot of questions about these, and so that's why I decided to do this month's podcast on this subject. The first thing that I want to say is that if you're shopping on eBay and you're looking at Nazi wristwatches, if you're looking at World War II vintage German-issued wristwatches, or for that matter, World War II, issued watches from, the Allied governments, be they the United States, be they Great Britain, be they any of the Allied countries, or, even the Japanese, they're fake. And there are very few of the genuine articles listed on eBay. And so that's not even where you want to go to shop for these things. One of the things that you'll notice, and you'll see here on the screen, what you're seeing is a bunch of German-issued wristwatches. Some of these were issued to the Luftwaffe. Some of these were issued to the infantry ranks, to the naval ranks. Some of them were issued to civilian ranks, people who worked in civilian posts within the German government, bureaucrats and so forth. They would get issued watches as well. And I want you to notice something particular about all of these watches. Look at them. And I want you to see what is not there. You don't see skulls. You don't see SS insignia. You don't see swastikas. But yet, whenever you're on eBay looking at World War II vintage German-issued military watches and so forth, what do you see? You see a bunch of swastikas. You see a bunch of skulls. You see a bunch of SS symbols and so forth. What happened was somebody in India, somebody in the Ukraine, somebody in Eastern Europe, which is where most of these watches are being sold from. Sometimes you'll see listings, the person will be in Vietnam or in Indonesia or, some crazy third world country. And, there are people in these countries who know how to get junk watch parts and put them together to make a somewhat working watch. And one of the things that they like to do is repaint the dial. And I guess they just figured that since you're looking for a vintage World War II German-issued military watch, they put a bunch of swastikas on it and, skulls and different things, thinking that that's what you think Germans wore. I guess they figure you've watched a bunch of stereotypical war movies. I don't know. But look at, these are the real German issued wristwatches here that were issued to the soldiers, that were issued to the civilian workers, that were issued by the German government. And you'll see here no skulls, no swastikas, no SS insignia. They're just normal watches. In fact, they don't even have anything on the dial to indicate that they are German government-issued watches. What you'll see here is what they do have is they just have the name of whoever manufactured them. If it was manufactured by Helios, or if it was manufactured by Bulova, yes. Believe it or not, Bulova. They bought watches from Bulova. They bought watches from other Swiss watchmakers and other watchmakers as well. as well as some German watchmakers. And whoever made the watch, they just put the regular dial on it. Now, one thing that you can see is if you look at the back of this watch here, and I'll show you the back of the watch here, is you will see there is some engraving on the back there, and that will be a serial number and a marking there to show that it is a government-issued watch. But there's nothing on the face of the watch as far as logos, insignia, and so forth. And so that's the first thing that I want to point out to you about these Russian-made, or rather these German-made wristwatches. Another question that I get is that, and by the way, I'm not going into great detail on these German wristwatches because I could break it down, the particular model, and I could read you the specs and so forth of each model. And that's all I'd be doing, is I would be regurgitating information. If you really want the specs of German World War II era wristwatches, there are places you can go on the internet and you can look up the specs. They're in encyclopedias and so forth. They're in collector's guides and those different things. And you can look those things up if those things interest you. I'm not just going to regurgitate that information for you here. And I'm not going to, try to rattle it off from memory, because the truth is I really am not an expert in these wristwatches here, these particular watches that you see on the screen. And so I don't want to, talk at length about things that I'm not an expert in. There are different videos you can find on YouTube where experts actually break down. They'll do a whole video on one particular model. They'll talk for 20 minutes about one particular watch, and then they'll talk for 20 minutes about another particular watch. And so if you really want to get into that minutia detail, you can do that if you'd like to. I'm just kind of hitting some general high notes in this video. Another question that I get, and I've got this question from a few of our viewers now, and the question is, Adolf Hitler. What kind of a wristwatch did Adolf Hitler wear? The best that I can tell, Adolf Hitler did not wear a wristwatch. Now, I have scoured the internet. I have scoured Bing images. I have scoured Google images. I have scoured DuckDuckGo images. I have scoured the internet and I've looked at thousands of pictures of Adolf Hitler, specifically to find a picture where I could see a wristwatch on the Fuhrer's wrist. Now, did I expect to be able to zoom into some, blurry 1940s or 1930s black and white photograph that was in low resolution and, be able to zoom in and tell you what brand and model of wristwatch he was wearing? Absolutely not. I was just trying to see, is there a picture where Hitler is wearing a wristwatch? And I cannot find one. I'm not going to say that one does not exist, because as soon as I say that, somebody's going to come up with a picture of Adolf Hitler wearing a wristwatch. But I will say this. I've looked at thousands upon thousands of pictures of Adolf Hitler, and I never see him wearing a wristwatch. If you do a Google search on the subject, you'll find that several historians have noted that Hitler did not generally wear a wristwatch, but that he did wear a pocket watch. And it was a Jungens watch. It was made in commemoration of his 47th birthday. And we're going to put a picture of that up there for you so that you can see that watch. I'm not for sure how many of these were made. It's not known for sure. One of these watches was made for Adolf Hitler as a gift for his 47th birthday. It was given to him by the leadership of the Nazi Party. And there were also others that were made identical to it. And they were given to some high-ranking members of the party in commemoration of Adolf Hitler's 47th birthday on the 20th of April in 1936. So how many of these were issued, I do not know. The one that's in the photograph here is the one that is currently in a museum in Poland. However many years ago, there was a border guard in Poland, and he discovered the timepiece when he had stopped a driver and they did an inspection. And so the watch was confiscated, and it was given to the Polish Historical Museum, who basically was able to identify it as at least one of the watches that was made in commemoration of the Führer's 47th birthday. And it is on display in the museum there. And so, again, how many of these exist, I don't know, but this is the watch that Hitler carried with him, probably for the duration of the war. These are gold-cased pocket watches, and, people, historians say that Hitler almost always had a pocket watch in his pocket, that they could see the chain and the clasp and so forth, that they could see that sometimes. And so they knew that he carried a pocket watch. On a few occasions he was photographed or he was observed looking at that pocket watch. But for the most part, as I understand it, is Hitler had a thing where he would ask his subordinates or his people who were around him, because he was always surrounded by a lot of people, and whenever he wanted to know what time it was, that even though he carried a watch, he didn't generally pull it out of his pocket and look at it. That more often than not, he would just ask it, what time is it? And, there were any of a number of people who would immediately look at their watch and they would tell him what time it was. And so that's just a quick answer to the question on what type of a wristwatch did Adolf Hitler wear. Now, just kind of talking about Adolf Hitler's wristwatch, I do want to bring up another watch, and it's currently on display in the museum there in Munich, Germany, and its item number is 471-96. And for a number of decades, this watch would only see the light of day in very rare occasions. And on those occasions, whoever was handling the watch would wear, white cotton gloves, and they'd very carefully lift this platinum watch out of its velvet-lined case, and it was a beautiful watch, diamonds encircled the round face, and the light would just glitter off of these diamonds. It's an absolutely beautiful watch. This watch, and you see it on the screen now, was made in the southwestern German city of Pforzheim, and it was made by Ishaza, and on February 6th, 1939, Adolf Hitler gave this to his then girlfriend, Eva Braun. And it was her 27th birthday, and this was his gift to her. And engraved on the back, it said, on February 6th, 1939, with all my heart, A. Hitler. And so this was a gift, like I said, for Eva Braun. And it is the only known item, really, of any value to have survived. And so it was called the Estate of Eva Braun, and the Estate of Eva Hitler, because Hitler and Eva Braun were married, in the Reich bunker, shortly before, that bunker was abandoned by the Germans. There's, conventional history tells us that Hitler and Eva Braun, newly married, committed suicide together. And of course, there's an alternate version of that history where they escaped the bunker, where they escaped Germany, where one of Hitler and Eva Braun's doubles, and they had them for security purposes, basically were killed, and their dead bodies were left there for the Soviets to find. And of course, the real Adolf and Eva Hitler made their way to Buenos Aires and into South America, and lived out their natural lives there. According to one report, I want to say that it was like 1993 when Eva Braun finally passed away, or maybe it was after that, but she was 93 years old. I don't remember. Again, I'm just kind of throwing this stuff out there. But this watch that you're looking at here was a gift from Adolf Hitler, and it's a beautiful, beautiful watch. and it is in the museum there, like I said, in Munich, with some other things, some silverware that had Adolf Hitler's initials on it, some cufflinks, and some other a tie tack with emeralds and rubies, a diamond ring that Adolf Hitler had worn, some jewelry of Eva Braun's, and so forth. And so, again, just one of those interesting things to kind of throw out there. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a commercial from our friends over at the Barnes Review, and then you come back and we'll finish out this video.
Open your web browser and type in www.barnesreview.org and discover the Barnes Review magazine. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There is no more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review magazine in its print form, or in convenient electronic delivery. Our host has been a subscriber to both formats for years. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review.
All right, well, what you see on the screen now is a Waffen SS soldier's wristwatch. And this one had no markings whatsoever. This is just a true military watch. And it has, very minimalist markings on it. And so this is a museum display here. And again, I want you to notice here that this was one of the watches that was issued to Waffen SS soldiers during the 1940s. And it doesn't have the SS, doesn't have the skulls, doesn't have the swastikas, but it's just a beautiful looking wristwatch. It's a very minimalist wristwatch. And it looks just like the wristwatches that were issued to the Allied officers. Again, if you were to look on the back side of that watch, you would see the engravings that would show it would be a German issue as opposed to a British issue or an American issue and so forth. But just wanted to put that picture up there for you. I do want to ask you to do this. I want to ask you to like and subscribe because that just helps this channel out so much. It helps us to get rankings in the Google search engine when people like the video, when they subscribe to the channel. And that enables our videos to get a little higher up in the search engine. And of course, when they do that, we'll get more views. And when we get more views, our advertisers, of course, will get more exposure. Right now, we're advertising for as little as $10 for a podcast. And so reach out to me. My email address is on the screen. And say, hey, Ed, I'd love to advertise in the Poor Boys Horology podcast. And I'd love to talk to you about that. And like I said, right now we're offering a $10 special. And as more and more, people see these videos, as they stay up longer and longer, they'll get more and more hits. Hopefully, as watch videos do, sometimes they have a low number of hits for a while, but eventually these go viral. And when people start to watch them, then they start to get more of a listing in the Google search result. And as that happens, then more people watch, and it's just a pile-on effect. And when that happens, of course, your advertisement's going to get a lot of exposure, and it might be a year down the road, it might be 2 years down the road, but you're going to be getting it for a discount right now. And of course, when our videos start to rack up thousands of views, we're going to raise the advertising price. But right now, you can get a really good deal. And so I hope that you'll take advantage of that. Those were basically the answers to the 3 questions that I've been getting. At least the 3 questions that I was able to do some research and answer about, Nazi-issued wristwatches, about Adolf Hitler's wristwatch, and so forth. And so I hope that this video was enjoyable for you. And reach out to me. I love to hear from our viewers. Please contact me by email. I don't always get an opportunity to see the comments on the video, but if you send me an email, that will definitely cross my desk, and I will see it, and I will respond to it. And to our good friend Jay Cook, I want to apologize that I keep saying I'm gonna get to that watch collection that you sent me photographs of. I am gonna get to it. It's just life has been very hectic, but I appreciate you watching the videos every month, Jay Cook, and love you. And like I said, I will get to that collection. So now, just for the heck of it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a World War II German marching tune so that you can have something cool to listen to as the video fades out.
Auf der Heide blüht ein kleines Blümelein, und das heißt Erika, heiß von 100.000 kleinen Bienelein, wird umschwärmt Erika, denn ihr Herz ist voller Süßigkeit. Zarter Duft entströmt im Blütenkleid. Auf der Heide blüht ein kleines Blümelein, und das heißt Erika. In der Heimat wohnt ein kleines Mägdelein, und das heißt Erika. Dieses Mädel ist mein treues Schätzelein und mein Glück, Erika. Wenn das Heidekraut rot lila blüht,